Okay, fresh out of lunch. We're not going to let you guys off the hook for this one, so we're asking for some participation to liven it up a little bit. If you can all please join the Menti by scanning the QR code or going to the website. The Q&A will go much smoother. So we'll give you a quick second to do that. So welcome, everyone. I won't say the title of our presentation 3 times fast, but definitely surviving transformation and big topic as of the last handful of years, but certainly right now as well. As mentioned, I am the Chief Technology Officer at Detroit Technology, and Andrea and I have actually known each other for over 10 years. Andrea?
Yep, I'm Andrea Selke. I'm a principal in Plant Moran's cybersecurity practice. I help clients with their cybersecurity challenges, and like Mihaela mentioned, we've known each other for a long time, former client, and so we're excited to talk about this topic with you today. So to kick it off, we wanted to make it a little more interactive and do a word cloud. So what's your biggest technology or fear or pressure as technology leaders? And while that's populating, I wanted to just kick it over to Mihaela. Mihaela, what's transformation mean to you?
So I really think it shouldn't be a one-time event, although I've had the pleasure of being parts of lots of transformations, but I really think it's incremental change, incremental value, and that means very many different things to different organizations. Also, when we think about modern, because I think modern and transformation go hand in hand, or they should. It's a break with the past, and that's again really subjective. It could mean different things to different organizations. I think one thing to keep in mind as we transform in a modern way is staying away from a sea of sameness. We've heard a lot about how technology is going to impact organizations, but ultimately, if we're all charging in the same direction, really keeping in mind what makes us unique and doubling down on those things.
Yeah, and I see one of the key words here, falling behind. I know when I talk to clients, that's what I hear a lot about, especially in the AI transformation journey, is thinking about we don't want to be left behind with AI, but we don't know where to begin or where to even start with the AI journey, or what we should be even thinking about from that perspective.
And AI was the first one to pop up. I don't know who was the quickest to the draw on that one. Whether that's a fear or a pressure, but also we're seeing security and change. Too many things. We'll talk about too many things in a moment. So I think suffice it to say, probably everybody is feeling a little bit of the same. And how do we survive this together? And what are the approaches that we can use to do that?
Yep. So when we're having these chats and planning for this fireside chat, Mihaela and I would talk about different stories, different experiences that we've both had as far as transformation and technology. Me more from the security perspective, but Mihaela in her different CTO type roles. And to put it in perspective, I know you have some interesting stories, especially related to the replatforming of sharperimage.com. We want to kind of talk through that, what that transformation looked like in that experience, and ultimately, did you survive it?
Debatable if I can say that I survived it, but obviously you've been hearing a lot about AI today, and as a technologist, there is something that comes a little bit before that, and in the world of tech, it's called composability. And that's really the recognition that software has continued to become more and more distributed with the adoption of cloud, with the adoption of APIs. We can now transact and interact on multiple interfaces, whether that's the web or in your car or very soon probably anywhere we so choose to do that. So composability has really set the foundation, I think, for what's happening in AI to really take hold and do it in a way where it impacts every single industry. It's not going to be immune from the same issues that plagued microservices when we think about how complex they are, how many systems you need and how many people you need to manage those types of systems, and also, of course, the security risks that come along with that. Yeah. But in terms of the actual transformation at sharperimage.com, we were unfortunately in the middle of the pandemic. That was a transformation that was attempted in a different, more traditional way before we decided to go completely modern. And it turned out that we only had 4.5 months to execute the transformation of an end-to-end business system in the commerce space, inclusive of the interface, the data warehouse, the ERP integration, and the whole 9 yards. So that's a really, really short period of time. And composability is ultimately what allowed that to happen, and with the speed and with the agility that we needed it to happen. Again, did I ultimately survive that in such a short period of time is debatable, but what did survive was the business. So it was the largest holiday on record, and for sure the old system would not have been able to support that amount of load. So
how did you even begin that journey? Was it jump right into composable architecture? Or how did the business eventually get to that path? Because I think that's a really interesting kind of thought of, yes, we want to transform, but what kind of kicks that off, or what starts that conversation?
So I'm a little bit of a subject matter expert when it comes to distributed, at least digital systems. And coming from the software as a service space, I was well aware of microservices and distributed digital systems, moving mostly in the health space. So when I moved over to the retail, of course, it was a much different environment, also from the security point. But I had the benefit of having team members, architects that knew exactly how to compose a system like this, how to do it fast and correct. So it was really coming to the table with that approach. We were very, very early. This was now 5 years ago, I would say, in taking that approach. And since then, there's a whole organization that really represents this approach now. One use case that is live is also Mars Wrigley with M&M's and their transformation of their website ultimately took this approach with a goal of using that as a foundation across all of their brands, of which I believe they have 40 plus. So that really allows you to centralize the knowledge of the technology. Composability works in a way where you can ultimately plug and play different capabilities. If you have 75 brands and one of them doesn't like a particular CRM or a particular search vendor, and they have their own way that they like to do their marketing automation, composability would allow them to do that still on the same foundation and kind of plug and play those capabilities. So
very API heavy.
Very API heavy, and when you look at what's happening right now in the AI space, it's very similar in terms of being able to tap into different capabilities that are backed by different systems. I would say the day that our CEO realized that we had just moved from 1 to 5 production systems effectively, because that's what you have when you distribute capabilities across multiple SaaS vendors, it was a little bit of a shock. But all of those systems ultimately, had the backing of clouds, had the backing of scalable clouds. Sometimes you have multi-cloud resiliency, not always, but it's definitely a different environment. And again, I think it's a parlay straight into what we're seeing in the agent space.
So that's what you're seeing in the future, going to more, at least you talked about e-commerce space, going more of a composable architecture where it's not the traditional legacy back-end databases that you'd see before. Now it's, we can use all these different vendors to feed into one user interface that looks the same. You know, the user wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But yet in the back end, you can pick and choose what vendor and what you want to use for different, you talked about CRM and that, yeah.
Yes.
Are you seeing it on other industries besides e-commerce?
As you may be aware, through some other work we've done together, no industry is immune to this approach. Yeah. We're seeing it in health and wellness, in finance. So really, any digital type of interface where you have an interaction with a consumer or a client, and I think software has really taken the path of expectation of consumer expectations. So consumers now expect to have a different experience with you, and whether that's in the store or on your mobile phone or on the web, and for that to be a unified experience. And ultimately, composability allows you to do that. It allows you to centralize that business logic and apply it against any type of ultimately touch point that a consumer may expect. So, of course, retail is prime for the taking there because you have a lot of consumer interaction.
And different platforms.
Yes, absolutely, but healthcare as well, and finance. So how do you keep the core of who a customer is without repeating that data across multiple enterprise systems?
Oh, it makes sense. From how hard was it to integrate security and composable architecture? Because when you think about trying to secure something like that where there's so many different endpoints, it just makes it more expansive as far as what a threat actor could take advantage of. How did you incorporate security from the overall, project with strategy planning from the beginning?
And again, I think when we see what's happening in the AI space, it's even more of a pronounced question and answer. So, I had the benefit again of having a team that came from health and wellness that was well aware of highly secure security first principles. That said, security is a different animal in retail, and certainly I think the not necessarily adhering to all the appropriate principles isn't not, I wouldn't say frowned upon, but it's not necessarily as known in terms of what's expected of them. You don't quite often see chief security officers in retail organizations unless they're very, very large. So I think on the tech side, we did just fine in integrating what we needed to. On the business side, or the recognition of those needs and the investment of those needs, it was a little bit different.
Makes sense. So we also have a story just about generative retail AI and how your experience with some of those kind of technologies. You want to kind of walk us through that as well?
So I think there's a great question on, what is AI? What do we mean when we say AI? And I think the biggest use case right now, or the most appropriate use case, is generative AI. I've talked to a few people in the crowd today about determinism. So when is it even appropriate to apply AI to your use case? I would say if you're looking to do anything that has a very expected input or output, you're likely wasting your money right now if you want to apply AI on top of it. But in cases where you can allow a little bit of inaccuracy or creativity, however you want to call it, so the generation of a script, the generation of a creative image, usually things that convey a message to a user or a customer, those are great uses. But when we look at what's happening in automation, we already have great tools that AI probably shouldn't replace. There's a use case right now where I'm helping a client with, again, an end-to-end transformation. Part of that included the entire data ecosystem. And at the tail end of that is a BI tool that has been layered with an AI agent on top of it. let me tell you, being able to get a similar answer to what was last quarter's revenue in the same way every single time is a little bit of a challenge. So again, we're expecting a system that has no real strength and determinism to come back with the same answer every time, where there are already tools that can do that. So in workflow automation and in finance, if you're using it as a novelty, that's one thing. But if you're actually using it to get 1 and 1 equals 2, and it doesn't equal 3 tomorrow, you may want to rethink that. But absolutely, in the creative space, it's being leveraged to reduce time to market of what it takes to create a marketing campaign for large luxury retailers, as an example, to validate copy in brand, tone, and voice. So all of these use cases in Gen AI usually have something to do with communication, and it does a great job there. But again, there are also lots of people who just don't know exactly how to apply it, don't know the risks associated with improperly using an LLM where you shouldn't use an LLM. And unsurprisingly, there's going to be a lot of education that needs to happen in the market. Similar to composability, I'm sure a lot of you have never heard of it. And it is now at least 7 years old. And part of that is because it's incredibly complex, and agent systems aren't going to be any less.
Yeah. When you gave your example about that retail agent, where was that push coming from to use the AI agent? Even though it doesn't sound like it really made sense to go down that path, was that coming from executives or board members that were saying, let's use an AI agent? This is the solution we should for this problem or this goal we're trying to achieve?
Unfortunately, yes, all the way from the top. So it was a mandated feature that AI needs to be incorporated into this transformation somewhere.
Okay.
And there weren't any appropriate places for it at the beginning or in the middle, so it ended up at the tail end. There are systems that are marketing themselves as AI business intelligence systems, and lo and behold, here we have one. So there's a lot of validation and revalidation happening right now because of the inaccuracies in the LLM itself. And like lots of companies, there's lots of young companies that have entered the space, and they're also growing, figuring out where to invest, and it's not always where you need them to invest for your use case.
Yeah, when I talk to clients, that's what I hear, a lot of stories of we don't want to be behind, and I think that was one of the cloud words, we don't want to be behind in our AI journey, but we don't know where to start and what to do as far as implementing AI. And I've even seen it in the complete opposite side where they roll out AI across their entire organization, and in one case with a financial institution where they incorporated it into their loans, and that has customer PII, and it's then trying to roll back and put in the security guardrails once it's already rolled out, because it was an afterthought, is quite the challenge.
Absolutely. I think intent matters a lot, even when it's mandated that you need to use AI in your organization somewhere.
Right.
Find a spot where it makes sense. Find a spot where you can manage it well.
It's still a technology that just needs to be incorporated.
It's still technology.
Right.
And
at the end of the day.
What's fascinating to me is almost how it's trusted more so than any other technology that I've seen by default.
Interesting.
And when you think about vendor management, even all of that is incredibly lax. So before you bring on a critical vendor, you're validating longevity as well. And with so many young companies, it's hard to validate that. And are they even going to be around tomorrow? And now you've integrated this capability into your stack, and they could literally disappear because a lot of them aren't going to make it to the end. So there's, as with everything, where there's opportunity, there's risk. And certainly, don't forget about the vendor management and continue to vet them like you would any other capability that you're adding to your organization.
Yep, those are good points. So as far as you as leaders, just some principles to keep in mind to get transformation off the ground. What leaders must think about is the intent. So we talked a little bit about having the goals and making sure that the strategy, the business goals, the technology strategy, it all aligns and it makes sense, and that it's, I don't want to say easy to get behind, but it makes sense for the support to be there, and that kind of leads into the champions, making sure you have the right key stakeholders in place to see that transformation through the end.
Well, if it's not understandable, and new things aren't always easy to understand, but if it's truly not understandable for your organization, you might want to question why. Of course, you're doing it, and we don't want to sound cliche here. Sometimes we all just need to be reminded of what matters, and like with anything else, if you can't champion it, how are you going to be able to train on it? And if you can't measure it, then how are you going to be able to show the value? And those aren't necessarily easy things today with AI in general. I think with transformation, digital transformation, it's a little bit more straightforward. But again, just because it's new and shiny, don't forget the basics, and make sure that you're adopting the right risk management at every step, especially with AI in the mix, because I'm sure everyone recognized almost overnight AI was added to the slide deck and the logos of so many companies that maybe the month prior hadn't been claiming that. Should definitely question why that is, or how exactly they are implementing AI within their tools, and whether they really were AI prior to that. And having somebody that understands those risks to champion it with you, eyes wide open, so to say, is really important. But also, we haven't yet talked about the ethics part of it. So. Of course, there's a lot of fear about what we're going to lose as humans in terms of our opportunities, but there's also a lot to gain. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of that transition now, so I don't know that it's incredibly clear for everyone what tomorrow looks like. But you should be leveraging it again to stay true to the core of who you are, and to really enhance everyone's positions. So, absolutely, what are the things that are being done that probably should have been automated 5 years ago, 2 years ago, and maybe you're behind in automation that has very little to do with AI. We're just kind of slapping that capability onto it now to get it done. But I think a lot of it for organizations is going to be catching up. Catching up to modern technologies, capabilities, and how it can assist the organization without ever even thinking about AI. And then once you clean that up, then really take a look at where AI can be integrated. And then communication. So is everyone truly aware of what's being done and how it's being done, or is there going to be a surprise on how that impacted your department tomorrow? I'm sure leaking IP through what might seem innocent questions into a chatbot, seeking information that you shouldn't have. When we think about not sharing passwords, right? How are you giving access to these AI capabilities? Who's in control of that? It really needs to abide by human rules, and I heard that mentioned earlier as well. It's absolutely true. It should be looked as an extension of the team. So communicating
Integrating
it very
security from the
broadly,
beginning.
integrated from the security from the beginning. So again, I mean, I think this is true of any project, of any program, but do you know why you're doing it? Do you have someone to champion it? Can you truly measure it? And of course, make sure everybody knows what you're doing, unless you're running a stealth innovation program, which does exist, but otherwise, transparency is best. So we talked a little bit about what it takes for leaders, but heard don't know where to start. Too many things at once. In surviving transformation, I think simplicity is key. I mean, as simple as massive transformations can be, but sometimes we take on a little bit too much. So don't forget that there's also people in process that are behind these technology changes, and that can't be underestimated. So if you introduce new technology and you fail to bring the people along and you fail to update the processes, it will absolutely also fail or take a very long time to adopt, which normally doesn't bode well for the measurement and the value that you get out of it. I would say in my experience, it's been the number one overlooked factor that you have a subset of the organization, whether that's marketing or operations, that's looking to do some sort of transformation, but the rest of the organization isn't necessarily on board, or you have varying roadmaps between technology and operations, and they need to be unified, and 3 years go by and no features get delivered because nobody's on the same page. So
And a lot of time and effort spent.
a lot of time and effort spent. So there's a lot of value in starting small, especially now. Being able to prove that value in a way that's meaningful, and again, that you can share that and communicate it, and then continue to expand. It doesn't have to happen overnight. Would recommend that it doesn't happen overnight. So again, transformation is incremental change, and that's the easiest way ultimately to survive it.
Yeah. And should we do it?
And
does it even
should
make
we do it?
sense?
So absolutely, going back to there's pressure to add a feature that maybe has AI in it, but it's not the right use case. You should absolutely be asking at every point right now, should we do this? And is AI the right tool? I think back, and it's still happening today. It's incredibly difficult to estimate when we look at cloud transformations, the cost.
Yeah.
So you have a baseline, you can do some estimations in terms of what it could be, but it's not truly until you go to production and you find out how much it costs, and more times than not, it's a little bit of a shock. So the same thing is going to happen here. I mean, who here in this room knows that if you introduced an AI agent, how much it would cost you at the end of the month? And we're talking about enterprise use cases. So to avoid those surprises, being able to have that baseline that you're measuring against, again, starting small is incredibly valuable, because it'll answer a lot of questions for you that then you'll be able to take back to your board to substantiate what you're doing and how much it'll cost in the end. Not to forget that we're trying to deliver some value here. If you're doing it just to do it, and I think those things do exist again in innovation, but in the day-to-day, delivering value should be your target, whatever that means for your organization.
I agree.
And don't underestimate the value of domain knowledge, whether that's in security or transformation or something else. Having some guidance up front is absolutely critical, especially in transformation. So make sure, in order to expand the footprint and continue to have a thriving business at the end of it, partner early. Nobody has all the answers right now, and you should be asking a lot of questions. So speaking of questions,
I was just gonna say that. Speaking of questions, we'll open it up.
the Q&A has been opened for you, but if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them here. We'll give you a moment to do that, and then we will start answering them.
I'll kick it off with the first one. Are you seeing the trend where generative AI tools are being deployed in/move the data centers due to the increased cloud costs?
Absolutely. So literally just had a pretty serious architecture discussion the other day about the risks of cloud. Again, I think we literally just talked through it. It's very, very hard to estimate the true costs until you're in production, and repatriating back to your own servers in a controlled capacity is absolutely a pattern. It's not just in AI, by the way. I think all workloads that are being moved to the cloud are feeling this a little bit. So again, in that case, was the cloud the right path, and why? And again, it's okay to not have the answers, but it's also important to make a change when you know that it's the wrong thing. So if you do need to move away from the cloud, I would say that's just as modern as the cloud itself. You need to find the solutions that actually suit the business and not follow trends, because we have a lot of trends to keep track of for sure.
And I think not just the cost, but I just even see from a security perspective, the pullback from the cloud, just because of the risks in cloud configuration and exploitation, that yes, there is a cost component a lot of times. I think to your point, it is surprising, but just the security of it, you can control it if you bring it back on premise or in a data center. And especially if you're in a certain industry that really has a strong focus on IP and trade secrets and things like that, and you can control that environment more, that's more desirable than versus putting it in the hands of a cloud provider.
Absolutely, and not necessarily we have very little time, but LLMs do have a lot of value. I mean, ultimately, data and your unique data is the moat. Yeah. So creating your own LLM ultimately to drive the business is definitely something you can look at, and that has a lot of value, because right now everyone has access to the same data. Right. So how do you differentiate that? And ultimately, that's creating your own, feeding that in a very secure capacity, right. and then layering agents on top of that that are then able to drive your business just like any other employee would. Right. So I don't know how to get it on the screen necessarily, but there's another question here on how do I measure AI success? And I would say, what was the goal? Again, have intent and then measure that intent. It's not just generic, how do I measure AI success? You're just applying another tool. It could have been any tool, but you chose AI. And really the answer is in whether it accomplished what you were seeking to do or not. And whether it also, fits the right cost structure. Again, it's not just about accomplishing the goal, but did it do it in a way that is appropriate for your business, or do you need to switch back to a data center because the cloud is too expensive? And then last question, 49 seconds. What advice do you have to normalize CEO and board expectations with the reality of value? Sorry, my screen is shifting here. With the reality of value and risks with AI technology. In terms of CEO and board expectations, what I'll say is there's absolutely speed to market sitting on the table for everyone. Leveraging the right tools can really accelerate, going from point A to point B right now. Having the right use case, again, is the most important part. So if you have a board or CEO that just wants to integrate AI, that's fine too, but I would question the value of that at the end of the day. You're normalizing the use of AI across the organization. That's probably happening anyways with everyone having ChatGPT on their phone and such. So don't forget, again, who you are. I think the biggest thing at the end of this is going to be, have you maintained what it means to be you in today's world, your uniqueness, what differentiates you from anyone else? Because the biggest risk, again, is racing to sameness. We're all using the same tools against the same LLMs. Why is my result going to be any different from yours? So really looking at, well, how do we use it the right way? How do we use it in the way that differentiates us? And whether that's creating a custom AI stack, or feeding it proprietary data in a controlled environment where it's not sitting on the cloud. Those are definitely things to look at, but it's maybe a little bit odd to say, but in the age of AI, what it's going to come back to is ultimately your uniqueness, and that's a very, very human thing, I think, to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, there are some more questions, but we maybe one more here. How is AI different from other paradigm shifts in technology platforms? From my perspective, I think it's this inherent trust that I think I see in the marketplace, where it's taken a lot longer to adopt other technologies over time, but it feels like in January, ChatGPT came out, and overnight, everything changed. When in reality, LLMs have existed, distributed digital technologies have existed, and now you go to a GPT interface and ask it questions, and there isn't enough pushback. So the adoption is happening, I think, much faster than it has in the past, which is a benefit and a risk.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. If we can answer anything else for you, don't be shy, but appreciate the time.
Thank you.